maybe I start that over. We're going to talk about being average, guys. Apologize for that. And the positives and negatives for that, whether or not it's the route you want to go. I want to talk about it. We're going to talk about all sorts of fun this week. So again, comment, say hello, like, subscribe below with YouTube, and we'll dive into it. So here's the thing. In the society that we're in, this is the reality of where most of us are standing, right? Here we are. This is the bell curve. This is all of us. You got your low performers, average, and high performers. This is all of us in life. Now, we want to be extraordinary, and that's great. But one of the biggest frustrations that comes is because people think that everything is going to be on that extraordinary scale. People think that that's what should happen, needs to happen, and is happening everywhere else. And partly because this is what we see all of the time. We see the top 20%. We see the Michael Jordans and the LeBron James and Steph Curry, and we see Usain Bolt running, and we see people jumping off of buildings and bridges, and people doing parkour, and you've got entrepreneurs posting these big numbers and driving fancy cars, or you see the bottom drudge of humanity doing awful things or just falling on their face. And we rarely ever talk about the average, where most of us are. Now, the average is there's a big swing in the middle, right? You've got between 21% and 80%, and it rolls all the way up. Now, is there really something so bad about being average? And I'm going to argue kind of both sides of it. And I want you to think about your life, because if we can eliminate, first off and foremost, this idea that we're entitled to extraordinary, then it relieves some pressure. It's not to say that I'm not going to go after extraordinary. I'm not going to go after success. What it's saying is that I'm not going to necessarily demand it every single day, although we can be exceptional. Most of the results that we get on a day-to-day basis are going to be somewhere in this average range. But there are dangers to being average, and then there's the reality of being average. Now, a couple of dangers of being average. The average person in almost every country around the world is a little overweight, is not exercising enough, is not where they need to be on a health scale. The average person isn't studying enough. The average person isn't taking enough action. The average person works 35 to 45 hours a week and makes a little bit more than what keeps them above the poverty line, but keeps them below what many of us would consider financially successful. That's where most of us live. Most of us don't sleep quite enough. Most of us don't get enough water. Most of us don't pay enough attention to those around us. That's average. There's a difference in attaining some average results and being content with being average, right? There's a big difference there. If I'm going through life and saying, look, average is, do most of you guys know that time frame right before Thanksgiving weekend here in the States, and think about similar things around the world, because I know some of you guys are international, but here in the States, the average person right before Thanksgiving is the lightest they will be all year. You guys ever heard of that weight that we gain during the holidays, right? The average person gains between 7 to 10 pounds during the holidays. And then they hold on to that all the way through January 1st, and then they slowly start to lose it, and then hopefully they balance things out. But let's assume that you're like most average people, and you put that weight on because you're just living life, and there's stress involved, and stress eating, and then extra food for holidays. And then you get yourself moving a little bit, and you start to lose a little bit after the beginning of the year. But during the year, you don't lose that full 7 pounds. You don't lose the full 10. Let's say you hold on to it. Look, guys, after a decade, that's an extra 35 to 40 pounds of weight you've gained simply by being average. And you've kept yourself over the course of that decade from probably hundreds of hours of sleep that you needed simply by being average. And you've missed out on exercise and health and days out in the sun and enjoying life a little bit because we've just accustomed to being average. And even if you say, I don't watch as much television as a regular person, you're still falling into that average category. You're still watching more than you should, And the results that you've attained to this point are average because of it. Now, here's the difference. Understanding I'm not Michael Jordan, right? Better than 99.999% of everybody else that's ever walked the earth. I'm not at this point, Sherman's kind of joking about me being a celebrity. I'm not at this point one of those 1 to 10,000 people that any given time on this planet are affecting global change. Yeah, David, or Forrest, it is. It's cold reality, but it's true. And most of us don't want to hear it. Most of us, especially as you're becoming an entrepreneur, you think, I'm going to be extraordinary. And you can. And I'm not trying to diminish hopes or dreams or goals. And if you pay attention through the rest of this call and into this week, you will fully grasp that, right? It depends on how you change. So what I look to do is raise my level of activity. I can't have an average level of activity and expect something different. But if I eliminate for myself this idea that I have to have this exceptional life in order to be happy or fulfilled in any way, then it allows me to start to focus on what I can do and develop the skills that will get me to the next level and focus on the activity and the level of activity that will get me there. And I bring this up because I see it a lot of times in people that are starting businesses, and I've seen it often enough in myself where I go, why aren't I further ahead? I'm doing this. And I start to look at the level of activity that I put into it, whether it's outsourcing it or me doing it directly or a combination of both. And I go, it's not that much higher than average. Where I need to do is think about what the average is that I want to be a part of, right? We've talked about you become the average of the people that are around you. How average are the people that are around you? Are they closer to that 70, 80, 90% percentile of the population? Or are you hanging around in the middle? Or is everybody you're hanging around in that 20 to 30 percentile? And yeah, you're doing great compared to them, but damn, that average is so low, it's dragging you down, brothers and sisters. You've got to be able to find a way to lift yourself up. And one big way to do that is to raise your level of activity. Another way to do that is to increase the level of those that are around you. And to modify your expectations, saying, look, this is where I'm at right now, but I'm not willing to remain average or attain average results forever. I'm not trying to be average. I want to be extraordinary. Being average, someone do me a favor, look up the definition of average. It's somewhere along the lines of, by definition, less than extraordinary. It's what the median of people are doing, moving towards the left or the right of the curve. What direction depends on our choice. Absolutely, David. And how actively we want to pursue that. See, some of you guys, we don't have to be in that top 1% or the top 10% of the world to make a huge difference in our lives. If you've spent a lot of time in your life hanging around that 30 to 40 to 50% percentile, and you're able to come in and move yourself into the 70, 75, 80%, that's a tremendous shift. That's a whole lot more income. That's a whole lot better health. That's a group of much better friends and love and happiness. But oftentimes we walk through this fog of mediocrity, this fog and this, idea that being average is, hey, that's just where we're at. And that's what everybody else is doing. And then on other days you wake up and you're going, well, why aren't I? Look, there's this guy out there that I was reading about that I really like following. And he's a CEO. He absolutely would be on the, the Forbes top 100 list. He's got a chiseled jaw. He could be, a model. He's friends with some of the most amazing people on the planet. He does charitable work. He does all sorts of wonderful things. He's a tech genius. He's got a conglomerate of companies. He's absolutely fantastic. The reality is most of us aren't going to be like him because his name is Bruce Wayne and he's Batman and he's a freaking superhero that doesn't exist in real life. There's not many people that are phenomenal in every single aspect, that are rich and good looking and attract everybody else and everyone wants to be them. Look, none of us are going to be Batman, but we can be exceptional with where we are. We can change our average, our levels, and modify where that is. You adapt to your surroundings. Where are you positioning yourself? Absolutely. So are my surroundings going to allow me to move to the right-hand side of this bell curve, or are they going to keep me where they are, or are they going to drag me down? Hey, Ernie, Superman would roll right there, except Superman's alter ego is Clark Kent, and he's a reporter and not necessarily as wealthy. So that's why I went with Batman, right? Is Robin average? Well, Robin's not the only one he hangs out with, right? And in the comic books, technically, Alfred, his butler, is also a multi-billionaire because he held some stock in Wayne Enterprises. But point of the matter, guys, what I'm getting to is if you remove some of the expectation from or modify your expectations a little bit, there are things that will inspire you. Some people watch those. There's a phenomenal, I want to say there's a YouTube channel with it. I know there's an Instagram with it. There's a lot of those videos you guys ever seen that are like The Amazing Humans, or you see people that are doing the just incredible things. And whether it's, traveling across the world to save villages, or it's, jumping off of cliffs, or it's doing all of these spectacular things, we watch those and we get inspired and we want to do more and be more. James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, is someone that I've talked about. He's now, I want to say he's done already 49 or 50 of full triathlon distance races for the last 50 days. He's done 50 of them, 49 or 50. I can't remember which day he's on right now, but he's done that many of them back to back to back. Now, most of us wouldn't be able to get through the initial swim. I wouldn't be able to swim for 2 miles right now, let alone go bike for 126 afterwards, and then, or 130, and then go run a marathon. But he's doing it. Now that's inspiring to me. But I don't wake up in the morning going, how can I go out and burn 12,000 calories today and become just like Iron Cowboy? What I do is I wake up and say, how can I be better today than I was? How can I make sure that I stay consistent? How can I make sure that I'm doing the things that are not just average for me, but start to consistently raise my average just 1% each and every day? There's nothing wrong with being average to begin with. The danger comes when you accept that average is all you're ever going to do, and you're unwilling to push to become extraordinary. And if you guys are willing to push to become extraordinary, then there's some amazing things that can happen. Now, those that are extraordinary aren't always the ones that are screaming the loudest. They're simply becoming better and better at where they are and what they're doing in their life. Qualities that are seen as typical of a particular person, seen as mediocre. Average is just average, guys. So take a look at where you're at. Think of what you need to do to raise your level of average. Start to look at extraordinary. And this week, I'm going to talk to you about success. And I'm going to talk to you about how to raise your action level. I'm going to talk to you about the formula for success. And every single one of you guys is going to create your own formula with the understanding that it can be modified throughout your life. But I'm going to give you some things that you can do to write out your formula and figure out what you need to do exactly to achieve whatever the hell it is you want to achieve. We're going to figure out a formula for that. I'm going to share it with you because it's math. And we all love math and science. So that's exactly what I'm going to share with you. I know some of you guys are already freaking out. Don't worry about it. It's easy. You'll be able to decide on what that looks like for you. So on that note, guys, go out, think about where you're at right now. Think about what your average is and what you need to do to raise that level a little bit. Look at those around you and their average. Look at your level of activity. Look at your thoughts and look at the pathway that you're on and start to map out what you need to do in order to raise your level of activity and raise your average and become the best version of yourself so that you can, as always, rise up from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are. Love you guys. We're going to be on tomorrow. Be ready because we're going to, you're going to want pen and paper to write stuff down. I will talk with you guys soon. Everybody have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Amen. Thank you. Bye-bye.